Around 11:30 a.m. on August 14, 2005, two Greek military fighter pilots flew high above Athens, Greece, following a Boeing 737 commercial airplane. The aircraft was supposed to have landed in Athens 45 minutes earlier. But shortly after takeoff, the pilots of Flight 522 had stopped responding to air traffic control. Instead, the plane was simply circling above the city. To find out what was happening, the Greek Air Force scrambled two fighter jets. The fighter pilots flew alongside the airliner and looked through the windows. What they saw was terrifying. Every passenger appeared to be unconscious. They then moved up beside the cockpit and looked inside, but instead of seeing the pilots, they saw a single man standing there, looking out the window and waving at them. Moments later, Flight 522 began to descend. To understand what happened, we need to go back to just before 9 a.m. that same morning. Before takeoff, the flight crew completed their routine safety checks. However, they missed one critical detail. A maintenance technician had accidentally left the aircraft's cabin pressurization switch in the wrong position. That single switch controlled the flow of breathable air inside the aircraft during flight. Because it had been left in the wrong setting, the cabin slowly lost oxygen as the plane climbed. By the time the oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling, many passengers had already begun losing consciousness. The pilots also passed out. Almost everyone on board became unconscious. Everyone except one person. A 25-year-old flight attendant named Andreas Prodromou managed to connect himself to an emergency oxygen supply instead of relying on the overhead masks, giving him enough oxygen to stay awake. As he moved through the cabin, he realized the passengers were unconscious. He also realized the pilots probably were too. The man the fighter pilots had seen waving from the cockpit was Andreas. Sadly, he had no training to fly a Boeing 737. Making matters even worse, shortly after Andreas entered the cockpit, the aircraft ran out of fuel. As the plane automatically began descending toward Athens, a city filled with millions of people, Andreas made one final decision. He grabbed the controls and deliberately turned the aircraft away from the city. Instead of allowing it to crash into a populated area, he guided it toward an isolated hillside. The aircraft crashed there. Andreas and all 121 people on board lost their lives. But because of his final act of courage, not a single person on the ground was injured.